Hey everybody, this is Anthony over at AnthonyCharlesPodcast.com, and today we're going to learn how to play Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on guitar. Now, it's always been a holiday classic, and personally though, as I've gotten a little older, I find a few problems with the story. Basically it goes, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer looks a little bit different than the other reindeer, so they don't want to hang out with him. Now Santa, who could have stepped up and said, hey, he might look a little different, but don't be buttholes, let him play, right? Decides not to. But then finally the day comes. It's Christmas Eve, and Santa's screwed. And he goes, oh, hey, Rudolph, listen, back when you were being bullied, I didn't say anything, but hey, now that I'm in trouble, why don't you help me? And Rudolph, being a better reindeer than me, decides to help Santa Claus and then saves the day. So I think that's the true moral of the story is, be forgiving even when other people who should look out for you don't. Merry Christmas.
All right, so let's get started learning the song. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, what I'm going to do first is play through the song, and then what you can do is learn the song, come back, and play it with me. Let's begin. You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all? Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph play in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then how the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. All right, so let's break this down. Pretty straightforward song. We have a total of like 6 chords, maybe at the most. So the first thing we're going to play is a C major. So let's take a look at that on some zoomed in camera work right here. Okay, so as you can see, right now I'm playing a C major chord. Now this is the fretting hand, and what we have here is my third finger playing the root note of this chord, C. Then my second finger playing the E on the second fret of the 4th string D, an open G, my pinky playing the high C in this chord with my first finger, and finally E, just like that. Now, what we're going to do here is when we play this chord, we want that sustain that we can hear right now, which is always really good. The next chord is going to be a G. Now, there's a few different ways to play a G, but the way I like to do it, I'll explain. So I use my second finger to play the G, which is the root note in this case. My first finger on the second fret of the 5th string to play the note B. Open D string, which is the 4th string, which is right here. Open G, which is the 3rd string right here. Now, for the top 2 notes, you could do an open B string. That means not fretted, open. And then finally, this G right here at the 3rd fret of the high E string. Now, what I like to do is actually use my 3rd finger and 4th finger playing D on the 2nd string, 3rd fret, and the pinky playing the 3rd fret of the high E string playing the note G. The reason I like this is because if I have to transition to a chord like D, for instance, which we will do later in the song, my 3rd finger plays the D in both times. Very, very cool. So we have C and G. In the beginning of the song, we have the names of the reindeer. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, and Vixen, right? Every reindeer, we switch chords. C to G, C to G. Now, if you're having trouble switching from C to G, just basically drill that shape back and forth. C, G, C, G, C, G. and eventually it'll feel smooth, and that's what we're going for. And then the second thing is Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. Same thing, CG, so forth. Now we get to something pretty cool, the But Do You Recall? And we break these major chords with a nice E minor. Sometimes I call this the Spider-Man chord. As you can see, it kind of makes that Spider-Man shape when he's shooting webs, right? So I have the E, open 6th string on the bottom here as my root note, and then I use fingers 2 and 3 on the 2nd fret of the 5th and 4th strings. It's almost like a power chord for those guys who play a lot of power chords. After that, what we have is G, B, and D on top. Very cool. Now, the reason I'm using these 2 fingers is convenient because my next chord is going to be an A minor. Now, that chord, all I have to do is now shift. Instead of making the low 6th string E, the root note of this chord, and having my 2 fingers here, I'm going to now transplant them. I'm going to now take them from the 5th and 4th strings. You can see them wiggling right here. And I'm going to move them to the 4th and 3rd strings, leaving the A, the 5th string, as the new root note. And I'm going to add my first finger to the 1st fret of the 2nd string, playing the note C. So I have my chords, E minor and A minor. Very cool. But do you recall? Now here's the last 2 chords that we're going to be learning for this song. It's an A7 and a D7. Sounds fancy. Pretty okay to play, though. Not too hard. And they sound expensive. They sound like they cost a lot of money, right? So let's take a look. So we have the most famous reindeer of all is the line. So we have the A7 and the D7. Very cool. So for the A7, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use fingers 2 and 3 because, again, what I'm thinking about is my transitions. That's what I'm focusing on here. So I have my open 5th string A, this one right here. And then I take my 2nd finger and put it at the 2nd fret of the 4th string D, playing the note E. Open G. And then finally I'm playing a C sharp with my 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. And then finally a high E. There we go. So it's kind of a variation on that Spider-Man chord, right? So we had E minor to A minor. Now I remove my 1st finger playing C and take this 3rd finger now and play C sharp with it. So that's an important movement. So if you're looking for E minor, A minor, A7, and now this is ultimately going to set up our last chord in the sequence, D7. So to play D7, again, I always focus on movement, is taking this shape and sliding it up a string each. So before I had the A7 chord, taking fingers 2 and 3. I'm going to take that similar sort of idea that we took from E minor to A minor and apply it to this A7 to D7 transition. And again, if you have any questions about any of these chords, I'm not explaining it right, or you can't see very well, basically what I always recommend is Googling them as well, so you can see different people explaining these chords and also playing them. So to recap so far, we've had the C major to G. We've had E minor, A minor, A7, and D7. There we go. Okay. So in the beginning, now let's move on to the structure of the song. So since it is 6 chords and there's not terribly a lot going on, what I try to do is to find ways that will fill this out and make it seem more dramatic, more fulfilling, right? So the intro of the song, Dasher and Dan, we're introducing all the characters, play 1 chord at a time. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen. But do you recall? Again, those 1 chord at a time layers. A7, the most famous reindeer of all. Right? All single chords. And a lot of sustain. Again, when you have that clean technique, that sustain is always going to be there, which is really great. But then when it comes to the core, or like the main part of the song, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Our hero has arrived. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the musicality of it, but then up the tension a little bit, make it more lively. So what we're going to do is now we have that G chord that we talked about before. And now we're going to try to make it a little bit more bouncy, a little bit more heroic, right? Or a little bit more active. So if we take a look here at the close-up camera, right? What we're going to do now is we're going to find a rhythm that accents that. We're going to go for something kind of country here. Now I'm going to take my pick, and I'm going to play the root note, in this case G in this chord, and then strum the rest. So you can even see how it's resting on the 5th string. After I play my 6th string, it goes right to the 5th. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It has that kind of jaunty, upbeat feel. Now when I go to the next chord, the D, which is the only 2 chords in this part. So again, the rhythm might be more complicated, but the left hand, the fretting hand, is doing a lot less. Now when I do the same idea from G and transition to D, I'll be playing the open 4th string, because that's the root note of this chord. And if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows, right? So that's the main part of the song where Rudolph shows up. And then we get to like the second verse, I would call it. Then one foggy Christmas Eve. So again, we're now back in the story mode. So for that, I would probably switch to, more single chord sustained work to kind of give it this chapter 2 type feel. So if we zoom in on the close-up camera. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, right? It's something that I want you to play with and discover your best version of this and have some fun with it, right? Santa came to say. Then we have D. Rudolph with your nose so bright. A7. Won't you guide my sleigh tonight, right? Now for Won't You Guide My Sleigh Tonight, the D7 that we have in the beginning part of the song, and again here, I use that as a springboard to ramp the tension back up. So we have A7, won't you guide my sleigh tonight. And notice how they have that pickup, a little bit of transition. It makes sense. It doesn't just start and stop and start again. So that's pretty much everything. Again, like the chords we went through some of the rhythms and some of the ideas. So now that you have all that, go back and listen to the version of the song as I was playing it. Again, there's no metronome. It's not super technical, accurate kind of stuff. This is something that's more of everybody's kind of gathered around informal, and you're playing and singing. So a lot of information to take in, but hopefully it wasn't too crazy. Let me know what you think. So in the comments below, give me some feedback. I always appreciate feedback. But even better is to learn the song and post it and then let me know how it goes, because I think that would be really cool too. So, all right, guys. Hope you got the Christmas cheer, Christmas spirit like I do. Yeah, thanks so much, guys. AnthonyCharlesPodcast.com. Again, we're going to have a lot of this stuff. We have a lot of long-form audio content with people in the industry, a lot of interviews, things like that. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe, and we got a lot more coming for you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.